Good evening, friends. It's Chris coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. And tonight we're going to talk about bitterness. Sweet bitterness. Well, what does any of this have to do with marketing? Slash purpose. Let's add to the conversation tonight, not just marketing, but also the idea that you have a purpose in your life, that you have important work to do, which we've said before, and that you are at some stage, at some level, you are working on your purpose. You are bringing life to your purpose. And one of the expressions of bringing our purpose to life is through marketing or through sharing or communicating our message, right? Leading our conversation. So where does bitterness fit into this? Well, I want to add a little bit more context in that I think whenever we talk about the idea of purpose, we're talking about a spiritual conversation. And sometimes that spiritual realm overlaps with our work, right? Especially those of us in coaching, transformational spaces, healing. There's a lot of our work that encompasses the spiritual side of things. And I can think of times in life where I have been bitter, and I can still, by the way, true story, I can think of that today. Like Facebook is a great one for me. I can get bitter at Facebook I think Facebook is arrogant. I think they change their rules about things. I think they censor stuff. There's all sorts of things I think about Facebook, and what happens is I allow it to steal my focus from the things that matter, right? Like I get so annoyed by something. What started out as anger and maybe even rage, I tuck it on the back shelf, and it just sort of it transforms into bitterness, and it just kind of lives in the background back here as bitterness, and it chirps and it talks, right? On and on and on it goes. And it is the most, so what's the right way to say that? Like, it is this persistent and chronic distraction, distracting my energy of love and light and the things I'm here to do in the world with purpose. This bitterness that lives in the background that I placed back here because I never cleared it out. I never got to a peace place with the original anger. That chronic voice and bitterness steals my focus away from where my energy would be better spent. Okay, so are you with me so far, right? In your life right now, you could probably think of something that you have bitterness for. And the sneaky part about bitterness is that because it's on the back shelf in the background, it is not this big, loud, boisterous voice. Bitterness is this small, little nagging, chronic thing in the background. But if you're not careful, because it's chronic, if you're not careful, it steals your joy. And if it steals your joy, how do you bring joy to others? Right? Or let me say it this way. The joy you do bring to others isn't in its fullest form. Okay? I get that. I get that. The more I get to make peace with the anger and put to bed the bitterness, the more I can start to find a fuller expression of my joy. Does this make sense? There was a time in life where I had felt betrayed by close friends, and I carried that bitterness for years, and it was chronic, but it wasn't quiet in the background, partially because I didn't have anything else to focus on, right? Like I had a job and I was trying to figure out my work, but I had this very persistent complaint about this betrayal. And it became this, for me, I was trying to make sense of it. I couldn't understand the betrayal. I didn't understand why I was betrayed. I didn't get it, right? It made no sense to me. And sometimes when you are betrayed, or sometimes when you have bitterness that is super persistent, it can be really frustrating because you're simply trying to figure out, why is this the way it is? And when you can't figure it out, it turns into nagging, and right, which underneath that is bitterness. There's this bitterness about the way things are. I'm pissed about the way things are. And you can't sustain the energy of pissed for very long, and so it turns into bitterness, right? Pissed is like a hot fire, but you can't sustain the hot fire for long because you got to get on with life. And so pissed and hot fire turns into chronic bitterness living in the background that constantly steals your joy. So this is important, right? Because again, if you and I are here in this life, here to create and share important work with the world, to spread love and light to the world, and we are human, so we are susceptible to the bitterness of things, the things that piss us off, the things we can't make sense of. And those distractions, those things that live in the background as bitterness are distractions to our focus and our purpose and our light. So how do we move past this, right? Because it is very likely, by the way, it is very likely that the more you step out into your truth, there are betrayals that will happen. There are things that will piss you off. There are people that will piss you off, and you won't be able to sustain the energy of being pissed off. And so it will have a tendency to move again to the background as bitterness. And so knowing that ahead of time, we can start to head that off. So what's the alternative here? How do we move out of this? What new mindset could we possibly embrace so that we protected ourselves from the bitterness? Well, there are probably many ways, many angles to this, but the one I'm going to give you tonight for me is I had to start finding where I could be strong. Where can I find my strength, right? Because again, if bitterness comes from something that pissed me off and I can't make sense of it, and so it lives persistently as this nagging voice that I'm just pissed about a situation, right? Because I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't make peace with it because it was unanswered for me. It was this open loop that never closed. Without starting to focus my energies towards the things I feel strong in, then all I'm left with is punching a clock at work and then having this frustrating thing in my background. But when I started to shift my energy, and I haven't done this yet with Facebook because I'm still bitter about some things in Facebook. But if I go back in life to the betrayal, and I started to find new ways to apply myself, areas of life where I felt strong, it started to not be important for me to figure out why I was betrayed. Does this make sense? I gave my energy a new direction. And rather than trying to spend my energy figuring it out, which kept the bitterness alive, I just refocused my energy into the things I felt strong in. Was there some healing? I did some healing work around the betrayal. So there was that, right? Like healing is a part of it. I think though also that if what you do is you just heal it, but then you don't actually bring a new focus into the conversation, right? A place that you can apply your strengths and your passions, then you may be healed, but you're still left with an unanswerable question like, okay, well, I'm not frustrated, but I still don't understand what happened. So the point here, gang, the point tonight is that you want to start looking for, obviously start to be aware of, okay, I noticed that I have a persistent nagging complaint in the background that could be labeled as bitterness, and it is stealing the fullness of my joy as I'm trying to make a difference in the world. So that's the first piece, right? But the second piece then would be, instead of focusing on the part that you don't understand, or instead of focusing on the bitterness or a betrayal or whatever it is, are there some areas where you could open up even more of your strengths and go apply yourself inside of those things even more, so that the passion of the strength, the passion of the work, the passion of the thing you're doing overrides and evaporates the bitterness. So that's what there is to look at tonight, right? I can't tell you what it is for you. I'm just sharing my story with you and trying to distill it down into one, a warning, right? Or one, hey, watch out for this bitterness thing, because as I've experienced, it can steal your love and your light. And then providing some perspective about how I feel like I moved through that. Part of what helped me move through that was focusing on the things I felt strong doing, because it evaporated or replaced the bitterness with something more important, right? So not sure what that is for you, but I know that you have important work. I know that you have a sense of mission. I know that you're looking for even more meaning in life. That's what we all do. And sometimes one of the detractors from that is bitterness that lives in the background. So here's to you, gang, finding your strength, finding the things you feel strong doing in life, and giving your attention to that so that it can replace and evaporate any bitterness that may be distracting you from the real work you're here to do. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.